So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where Russia joins NATO. Now, in the world of unlikely and impossible things, we have Russia joining an alliance which was made specifically to oppose Russia and stop it from expanding. The newest member last time was Finland, which joined last year, I think. And Sweden is in the process of joining. I actually just looked something up and it says they're going to be joining by July. I don't know how true that is, but we are waiting on Turkey and Hungary to approve them for ratification. But what if Russia joined? That'd be very strange, right? Well, we're going to be taking a look at some war scenarios and mapping scenarios today where they do join. And if you do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We have a whole 12 months to get there, and all the support is greatly appreciated. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump straight into the scenario. All right, so we have to bend reality and realism for this to work because there's no way that Russia joins NATO in real life, but they do it here. Maybe they reform their government. Maybe they, I really don't know what they would have to do for this to happen. It would be a lot, we could say that. But they finally joined NATO, and at this point, what's the purpose of NATO, right? NATO was created to oppose the Soviet Union in the 1940s, and at this point, well, the Soviet Union has just joined NATO, and they tried to in real life, but that didn't work out. That was kind of funny. So what does this do for Europe? Well, Europe is pretty much united under one country at this point, and when you're thinking about ideologies, or I guess, yeah, ideologies in today's world, you have like Western and non-Western, or I guess Eastern. Russia leads that Eastern ideology, and the West is led by the United States and a few other Western European countries. So with Russia joining this alliance, you basically bring those two together. But we're going to go under the assumption that with Russia joining NATO, they abandon their allies and succumb to NATO and, you know, get all of those allies instead. So they're now allies with countries like the Baltics and Finland, Poland, and Romania, Germany, France. They're allies with them now. They're no longer allies with countries like Belarus, Kazakhstan, China, Iran. So essentially what Russia has done here is they have switched sides, and there could be consequences for that. But with Russia joining the alliance, NATO doesn't serve too much of a purpose, so let's give them a purpose. We have the countries of Belarus, Serbia, Iran, Kazakhstan, China, a bunch of Central Asian countries, Syria, Lebanon, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. That's not Nicaragua. All coming together to form the anti-NATO expansionist alliance, which at this point NATO is no longer the Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, it's the Northern Hemisphere Treaty Organization, because, well, Russia touches the Pacific Ocean. I guess you could make the case that the US does as well, but, you know, they're a global league now, sort of. We'll give them that. So the red team forms as an opposition to this, and immediately this is going to cause some tensions to arise. This also gives NATO a purpose, since, you know, once again, for the fifth time, without Russia, NATO doesn't really have a purpose, but with this new alliance coming, they do have a purpose. Sweden is finally ratified into NATO, and at this point, a majority of Europe is within. And now, okay, so here's an interesting point, I guess a plot point. Ukraine. So Russia and Ukraine are at war in real life, but in this case, Russia joining NATO would kind of like override that. So the Ukraine war, I don't know if I want to say that it happens, because if it did happen, then there obviously would be tensions between Russia and NATO, and then they wouldn't be able to join. So I really don't know how to approach that. So let's just leave Ukraine out of NATO for now. And also another interesting thing with Russia joining NATO, Kosovo is, it would be interesting. So Kosovo obviously wants to join NATO in real life. NATO has forces there. Russia and a lot of other countries are preventing them from being fully recognized. But with Russia and Serbia, you know, obviously in real life they're close. But with Russia joining NATO, they would not be so close. And even with them being in opposite alliances now, obviously they would just get further and further apart. So maybe Russia recognizes Kosovo and they are able to join NATO. We would also probably see Azerbaijan joining, with, you know, Iran being right there, as well as Georgia. These are both countries that have interest in joining, but haven't necessarily gone through the process. I think Georgia has started, but not Azerbaijan. Well, actually, let me correct myself. Azerbaijan is a NATO partner. Now, for Armenia, I'm not sure what they would do. I think they would just stay neutral because, you know, they're sort of buddies with Russia, sort of not, and then obviously they don't like Turkey. Over on the red team, we have North Korea joining in on the red team, as well as Cuba, as well as Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. Now at this point, the red team is becoming quite large. It's a majority of, well, I don't want to say a majority of Asia, but it's a good portion of Asia, around a third of it, and obviously it's still growing. Japan and South Korea are in the works of ratifying their joining of the NATO alliance, which at this point is just the World Treaty Organization. Same thing with Taiwan, but, you know, Taiwan joining could be the breaking point between the two sides. But yeah, let's actually take a look at like the power comparisons between these two. So obviously China, Iran, and that's it, are the strongest countries within their team, maybe North Korea. But with the blue team, you have multiple strong countries. You have a superpower, the United States. You have a semi-superpower in Russia. Of course, China is also a semi-superpower. You have Turkey, the UK, France, Spain, Germany, Poland. So a lot of strong countries on the blue team. A lot of big but not so strong countries on the red team. So those are how those power comparisons kind of work. Also, I'm wearing a hat because my hair, I just woke up not too long ago. We didn't have school today, but you don't need to know that. Also, I'm wearing this beanie because my hair is a mess and I don't feel like fixing it. I tried to fix it and didn't work, so we're wearing the beanie. I've done this one other time before. Here we are again. So yeah, anyway, it's time for war because I've been dragging this on for too long, right? All right, so this starts over here. I kind of alluded to this earlier. Japan is the first to join in on the World Treaty Organization, and shortly after that we have South Korea, which immediately arises tensions on the Korean Peninsula between North and South Korea, who are now having troops pointing guns at each other. And now we have Taiwan joining, which is it. The red team is going to attack Taiwan. Taiwan's in NATO, so yeah, we have war between the red and the blue team now. Also, let me you guys know if you like this darker red color better. I like it better than the brighter red color, which if I go ahead and show you, the red color is like this. To me, that just seems like too much. That's what it normally is, but I like this darker red color a lot more. So once again, just let me know. Anyway, the two sides are at war. Both sides have been preparing for this, so it's really, I mean, we're not going to have any waiting time. They're going to start invading each other right away. And the first place to get completely just destroyed is Belarus. They're not in a good spot, and well, they don't even last that many weeks. Probably like 2 weeks max is how long Belarus will last. Another country that doesn't last long, Serbia. Sorry, it's just not going to happen. And you know, the inverse works for this as well. But there's only one place that can really happen, and that's Taiwan. And Taiwan's pretty strong. So, you know, the Chinese and Taiwanese and American Navy, they're all going at it. China makes a landing, but they have to fight the Taiwanese army, which is actually way stronger than I even knew. Shout out to Global Fire Rankings for that. Speaking of them, have they posted their 2024 one yet? They have. All right. I did. Well, actually, no, I didn't. I did okay. So, yeah, I'm looking at this now, and maybe you're seeing it on the screen. Maybe you're not. And then it goes USA, Russia, China, India, South Korea, UK, Japan, Turkey, Pakistan, and Italy. So France fell out of the top 10, which is interesting. I was right about Turkey getting up there, and I was right about South Korea moving up and the UK moving down. I didn't think that Japan would move up though. But what's interesting here is I'm looking at the grades, and actually what it says is that, oh no, it goes down. Okay, never mind. I thought that, well, Russia and China are like the same. If you look, it's 0.0702 for Russia, 0.0706 for China. For me, that's a win because I was basically right. Next year will definitely be China. Anyway, yes. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. USA, Cuba. Cuba, not so strong. USA, very strong. Goodbye, Cuba. Now, did I brush over that way too quickly? Yes. Do I care? No. We got to get to the more interesting fighting, which is happening mostly in the Middle East. All right, so we have Turkey going straight on into Syria. This happens a lot in my videos. I'm sorry, Syria. Maybe you'll get a... I was going to say maybe you'll get a video one day. I really don't know. When things get better, we'll see. At this point, oh, man, you know, let's just do it. I was going to say at this point, Turkey is having a lot of success and Israel will join this war. But, you know, the whole Israel-Palestine thing going on right now, you know what, we'll just leave Palestine out of it. I know realistically, Palestine would get involved if this were the case because automatically they would default to the red team. Let's just ignore it. Let's just, you know, let them have their peace. Let's just let this happen instead, which is not much better, but still. So Israel and Turkey demolish Syria. Yeah. And at this point, Iran is ready to start sending troops places. They go up into Azerbaijan as well as into their exclave and a little bit into Turkey. Now, I know mountains exist, but, you know, I'm a strong non-mountain believer. I actually don't think mountains exist. So geography does not apply to me. All right, these are like the smaller battlefields. And of course, you know, America is going to be kind of distracted with the little island hopping campaign over here, except it's more like country hopping. We can now go over here to East Asia, where honestly, I think our main fronts of fighting are in the Korean Peninsula and over here with Russia. So China obviously has the advantage over here because they are a lot more condensed in this area, where Russia is a lot more spread out, as you can see. So China has a lot of success in taking over these areas. And at this point, all of the major parts of Eastern Russia are gone. On the Korean Peninsula, South Korea, you know, they just moved to number 5 in world rankings. Unfortunately for them, though, China and North Korea combined together is a little much. Now, actually, you know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that Seoul gets captured right away, but I do think the Koreans and the Chinese have a lot of success in invading deeper into the peninsula. And of course, Japan is also going to be sending troops over, so really this could be a stalemate. I don't know where North Korea is ranked at. I think it's like in the late teens, maybe 20. And you know, China's number 3, almost number 2, and then you have Japan, who's number 7, and Korea, who's number 5. So 5 plus 7 versus 2 plus 20, it probably would be really close. But there's a large step in between South Korea and China in terms of military, because China, obviously they have the manpower and the population. South Korea, not as much. Same thing with Japan. Anyway, over to Kazakhstan here. I really don't know how this would play out in real life, because honestly, I mean, a large scale invasion like this is costly, and it's going to cost a lot of resources and isn't too likely, but these countries aren't going to be like fighting. They're not going to be invading Russia. But then again, I don't think an invasion like this from Russia and NATO is too plausible, just because of how big Kazakhstan is. If it was on its own, then yes, but it's not on its own. You know, you also have the other stand countries, Iran and China. All right, back over to the Americas. America is doing their thing. They are doing their country hopping. They landed in Nicaragua. And let's just say that Nicaragua has no match on its own. Then they immediately fold over to the Americans. Next up, the Americans will be going after Venezuela. Now, the cool thing about this is that Venezuela has a lot of enemies over here. So America gets Guyana to join in on the war, as well as Colombia. And with the help of these two countries, this fight isn't going to be as long as it would be. A combination of Colombian and American troops starts to storm into Venezuela from the western side, while another mixture of American and Guianan troops go into Venezuela from the eastern side. Brazil could possibly also get involved in this, but I think they would probably sit it out just because of internal reasons. Actually, you know, the same thing could probably be said about Colombia, but nah. The US eventually makes a landing of its own and captures the capital of Venezuela, which essentially leads to all but its capitulation. They get smacked around, they retreat into the Amazon, and eventually at that point we just have a bunch of guerrilla warfare, but we can kind of just ignore that because it's not anything too substantial. So Venezuela gets smacked around by the US and its allies. Now the Americans can send their troops over across the Pacific Ocean and to Japan and Korea, where they are most needed. At this point, Taiwan probably isn't holding out any much longer, and they are going to fall over to China. And also, I do just want to take a moment to say that, like, if Russia joined NATO in real life, I mean, first of all, that's really unlikely, but if they did, then obviously a world war wouldn't happen. Like, this is a world war. This would not happen based off of that. This is just one unlikely scenario leading into another even more unlikely scenario. All right, I just had to pause my recording. I don't even know what I was talking about. I'm so not linked in right now. I'm sorry. Anyway, let's go back to fighting. Where are we fighting at? We're fighting in the Middle East today. Turkey, you are the father. You and the NATO push back against the Iran. And with the power of friendship, you enter into Iran. Russia, who has been doing their own thing against the Central Asian countries, is going to go ahead and go down the Caspian Sea coast and link down to Iran on this side. And at this point, we have something called a two-front war, which, if you know anything about history, those are never too fun to fight, and they usually don't end too well. Now, am I hypocritical for having Russia do this good? Maybe. You know, I used to have Russia be really good in my videos, and people said that it was too overpowered, so I buffed, or I nerfed them. And then they said, now people are saying they're not strong enough, but I don't know. I like to base it off of the Ukraine war and how they haven't been able to fully take over all of Ukraine. And in their defense, you know, NATO has been supplying Ukraine for quite a lot of time now. But yeah, it's just hard to fully do this right. So would Russia be able to do this in real life? Probably. I don't know. All right, anyway, Iran, two-front war doesn't end well. Now, Iran is a strong country. You're strong. You would win, but not in this video. Tehran gets ran by the NATO. And with the help of some unrest in the population, Iran starts to fully capitulate. You know, all the things that were happening there not too long ago with the government killings, not so fun. People don't like that, so Iran essentially just kind of collapses in on itself with like the help of its population and with the help of NATO troops. Now, I'm not trying to discredit Iran's army, because they would be able to hold out better than that. but this is probably a little too overwhelming for them, having all of Europe and Russia going at them. Speaking of that, you know, that front right here, this is going to get absolutely like blitzed. Like, this is, once again, this is all of Europe. Now Europe doesn't have anywhere else to go. Sure, they could take the long route and, you know, go through here through the Panama Canal and go over to help out Japan and Korea. But honestly, it's probably better if they just send all of their troops through Central Asia and help out Russia, take out those countries, and reach the border of China, where then, you know, everyone's right here. You have easy supply routes through land. Well, let me get an actual color. You have easy supply routes through land in multiple places too. You have multiple bodies of water to kind of get supplies from. Whereas, you know, going around the world, or, you know, also I guess you can go down through here and go through that. But that's a lot more work than just going through land. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let me know. But I think, you know, railroads and stuff, that plays into a big factor into that. So yeah, Europe, this is Europe plus Russia versus Central Asia. Obviously Europe and Russia won that. And then we have Japan, Korea, and the United States and Canada versus these guys. That's a little bit more balanced. And plus those guys are on the offense from Japan, so they don't have an advantage. Anyway, China, seeing that the troops of the blue team are all around them, they go fully ham in on the eastern part of Russia to try to get as much land as possible if they were to want to exit this war. They also take over Sakhalin. And in Korea, they push around a little bit more, but ultimately they can't get too much more land. Now, to make things worse, you know, I was thinking about adding India into this war, but I think they would probably stay neutral in this. Well, it's hard to really factor in this, because I don't want to do a repeat of my scenarios, because with these big world war scenarios, a lot of times I end up repeating something that's already happened, and I really don't like to do that. But honestly, India and Pakistan joining this war isn't too unlikely, but just for the sake of this video, they will not be joining. But with that being said, the Philippines, they're a country that would maybe join, and not for the purpose of fighting, maybe not for the purpose of fighting, but instead of supplying and holding troops. And Vietnam is a country that could join this war military-wise, but they would need the full backing of the blue team before that were to happen. So, in order to get Vietnam to join, because that would have a lot of relief for them, they start an invasion of Cambodia. Now, if you know anything about the Vietnam War, this area is not fun to invade for multiple reasons. If you remember what I said earlier, I don't believe in mountains. I also don't believe in rainforest and guerrilla warfare fighting, so Cambodia gets rolled over. And slowly but surely, the blue team starts to make its way up into Laos. And at this point, Vietnam feels safe enough to join, in which they do. With the aid of the Vietnamese, Laos is completely taken out of the war. And yet another front is opened in China, this time with the Vietnamese. So taking a look at China here, they have three fronts, or actually they have four fronts. They have one over here in Xinjiang, they have one up here with Russia, and then they have one in Korea, and now they have one with Vietnam. There's also a naval front as well, maybe even multiple naval fronts over here with Myanmar. So China, really, they're screwed. And some other countries could look to join this war, like Australia and New Zealand. If those guys join, it's pretty much all but over for China. So being smart here, they're going to go ahead and they are going to surrender. Well, they're not going to surrender. They're going to agree to peace with the blue team under certain conditions. So let's take a look at those conditions and take a look at the peace treaty for this video. Alright, so let's go ahead and break down this peace treaty here. So starting in the Americas, we have Cuba, who gets annexed by the United States. Now, I'm not sure if this is like a long-term thing. If they become a state, most likely they're just held on to and then released back into a country, sort of like what they did to Japan after World War II. Nicaragua, they're given a new government. Venezuela, they're given a new government. When I color them blue, that doesn't mean they joined the WDO. That just means that they are WTO. It just means that they were given new governments, new democratic governments. Over to Europe, same thing here with Belarus. Now, they probably do join in on the World Treaty Organization. Same thing with Serbia. Going on to the Middle East here, we see that Turkey expands as well as Israel. Iran loses a little bit of land. Azerbaijan is able to fully connect its exclave. As for Central Asia, Kazakhstan is annexed by Russia, and Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan are all given new governments, which either may or may not join the WTO. I'm actually going to go off of the, maybe like, they are given the option to join the World Treaty Organization, and if they do, then they can, obviously. But if not, they have the right to decline. Maybe they do something like that. Syria is left crippled, in which case they most likely would go ahead and join up with Iraq, who maybe could unite with Iran to form some kind of Middle Eastern country. Over to China, they didn't lose anything, but they also didn't really gain anything. They're forced to split out Taiwan. They're forced to pull North Korean troops out of North Korea on the basis that North Korea is allowed to survive, though. Japan didn't lose or gain anything. Vietnam, though, they gained some stuff. They gained all of Cambodia and a slick of Laos. And as for land changes, that's really all that happened. So this war basically just expanded NATO, and you know, it wasn't even started by NATO. I mean, maybe it sort of was with them having Taiwan join. On the topic of Taiwan, one of the conditions was they had to leave the WTO. Same thing with Korea and Japan, so they are out. But yeah, interesting war scenario, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel. If you're new, like I said, we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We've got a whole 12 months, and all the support is greatly appreciated. You know, we're at 132,000 right now, so that's around 68,000 to go. I think it's possible for us if we really try. And yeah, once again, thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. And of course, thank you to all the super fans, which include Matthew Newman, Yam, Kali Speaks Plays, Shadow Gamer Z, Deva Edits, Mr. Bonk 7, Hammer Toad 45, Patrick Clauser, Connor the Gamer, Texan Cowboy Cheese, Poland Country Ball, Yakko, Nevada Garbage Trucks, DW Cool Dude, Soviet Ball, and Serminator. Once again, thank you guys.